Who of you is ready for four rotor updates or any updates whatsoever? I think it's all of you, and it's me included. I have phenomenal news for you. It has been one hell of a roller coaster behind the scenes, and I'm going to give you guys the insight and inside, not the Honda insight, to what's been going on with the four rotor. You know the rule, don't say, if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. I adhered to that rule, and it seemed to have paid off because when you start trashing other people that are not at the same wavelength as you are working on a project, I think that sets you up for some failure, in the long run, that people try to sabotage projects and so on. At this point, the Rotor project is back on full steam, meaning full pocketbook emptied, rack up the credit cards, life's going all in. As you may have seen in some of the pictures previously on here, the rear suspension's all done. I found a vendor to do that. I had a different vendor doing it, and unfortunately, there's somebody who's a good person, but just a very bad scheduler, and that put me about 3 months behind, 2.5, which didn't allow me to be able to communicate and make promises to getting certain things done because I needed the rear suspension to finish the rear chassis. That said, those pieces are here. They're all done, including the car. The car's here as well. What's important now is I've had to go through probably 7 different chassis vendors. What do I mean by that? There are 3 major areas of the four-rotor: the engine, the chassis, and the body. Of course, the body, this is more like a truck. The body can sit on the chassis of the car, and of course, cool as hell. Not necessarily naked, but like a skeleton parts of the car without body panels, I think will look pretty sick. Makes it easier to work on, but looks pretty sick too. The goal at this point is to take as much of the challenge and internalize it. I'm a person who takes full credit and responsibility for the ups and downs. And so you're not seeing me display or put out in public these vendors that have been driving me nuts with excuses. So, time to take it in-house and do it myself. I don't mean chassis work. I don't know shit about chassis work, but what I do mean is take control of my own project. And that's what's going on here. The car is loaded up for a vendor called Sano. So Sano, hopefully, at this point, if you guys are watching this video and this is a month after the video's launched, hope to God Sano comes through on what they're saying, because otherwise it's going to look really bad and the car won't make it to SEMA. At this point, there is no four-rotor, and I don't mean that negatively. I just mean that is current facts. The pieces that I've had for this long a time, I've got about $4,000 in parts, $5,000 in parts I've paid for that I've not seen in over a year. That's very frustrating, but that's been more than a year now. So the trick is, I told you guys I would produce an all-wheel drive vehicle, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. This thing is going to work regardless. I've always planned on potentially dropping in the 3-rotor as like a shakedown while I wait for the 4-rotor to get done. What's going to happen is probably just that. Is I've got a 3-rotor, brand new 3-rotor, all rebuilt, ready to go. I do not intend on running this car with it, but I do need to test my chassis, get everything all wired up, and so on. And you guys will know about this. This will be kind of a secret between all of us, is that the car that goes to SEMA will probably have a 3-rotor in it. Is that my dream? Fuck no, it's not my dream. That's not even remotely what I was planning on. We just met with Sano this afternoon and locked down all of the details. And of course, like anything in my fashion, no matter how hard I try and plan and be proactive and get ready ahead of time, it still ends up being crunch time right down to the very end. So today is September 7th. There are less than 2 weeks until SEMA, and this is going to be just a no expense spared, wild Mr. Bones' wild ride all the way to the very end. I've got easily another $40,000 that's about to get got in this phase and not even be remotely finished. But what I think will be the most controversial part will actually have the car unannounced at SEMA, and I don't know if the drivetrain will be the exact same. We'll see how that goes. But regardless, you guys know I know how to make waves, and this is no exception. I've had to jump through some serious hoops, but I promise, and I follow through on my promises. So some of the major things that are happening right now. Like I said, all of the suspension's all done. So you've got the Heim joints. Those are relatively inexpensive. Those are the joints the universal looking joints that go and ball and whatnot onto the end of those pieces. Got to get those. The cheap Chinese version of the wheel hubs, the ones that are for Corvettes, they're for '08 Corvettes. The Chinese ones I got off of Amazon literally fell apart within several hundred feet of pushing the car. They actually, like, the bearings wore out. So I have to get the OEM. I got one as a test, a $300 rear wheel hub for a ZR1, a Corvette ZR1, and it's going to be all the way around. So it's bigger, thicker. I think 33 spline versus 30, and so on. It's just an animal. I'm going to be dropping about $500 a piece on each of what they're called 934s. They're a CV joint, constant velocity joint, that is going to be on each end of every single drive shaft and axle. That's a high angle, meaning that for good turning and for serious articulation of when we hit ramps and shit like that, because this suspension is meant to articulate. The company Sano is actually an off-road builder, so for sure that their chassis is going to handle the power and the amount of torque and just sheer shock that thing's going to go through, because I'm going to put it through as much shock as possible. I'm going to bring up the list of all the things that I've got to order now that I've got confirmation that we're doing this. So we've got some PDMs, which is basically like power distribution modules. Instead of having fuses and relays and all those things separately, you have this unit that has that internalized, and it's kind of like a circuit breaker of sorts that lets you control the various amounts of power going to things like fans, fuel pumps, and so on. This car is definitely going to be dry sump. That took forever until like last week to figure out that yes, this is a dry sump oil system. So the oil pan isn't going to be full of oil in the bottom. It's going to be flat. I need way more power from my alternator, so a brand new alternator is going to be needed. At this point, I think we've pretty much verified that we're going to go with electronic power steering, like from the Toyota MR2s. Bell Intercooler has been a phenomenal partner in this, and they're making an intercooler, a radiator, and 2 oil coolers for the whole front of this car. And so that's going to be kind of scary, because there's no precedent. This isn't an RX-7 front end. This isn't an anything front end. This isn't even the Unicorn's front end. It's just a completely unique front end that I need to fit as much of those things in there as possible, but not get in the way of anything suspension-wise. I've got tons of wiring, of course, and there's a company called AI. AI is they're out in Australia, and they just sent me that nasty-looking surge tank for my fuel system. But they also have been come on board as like a sponsor for the whole fuel system. They've been urging me not to do the 5 gallon per minute electric pump from Aeromotive. I already have, or I've ordered one. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't gotten it from Able. But instead, go with the Walbros and multiple copies of those. The problem with that is the amount of power draw that comes from having multiple fuel pumps. The positive side to the Aeromotive is it's brushless, so it way less current draw. Of course, this is going to be a car with a fuel cell. So when you look at the rear of the vehicle and look at how low the suspension is going to be compared to the stock FD strut, tower and all that, shock tower, it's not strut. You see that it's considerably more space for fuel, which is what we're going to need, at least 20 gallon tank, guaranteed. And then, obviously, all the major things, but the Tesla all-wheel drive system, it's a custom controller, aftermarket, meant for the GTR center diff. Of course, this car can run in rear-wheel drive by default, which is an RX-7 Soul, but 50-50 torque distribution sounds like a blast. I think that because of the type of company that's building the rest of the chassis from here on out, is definitely going to keep the chassis balanced, not just for strictly race car, but like I said, Pikes Peak, handling, ramping, just everything that you could want to do if you were building a several $100,000 car. You'd want to get as much use out of it as possible. So that's where I'm at. That's the craziness here. You've got the Winters rear diff, which you saw. I made that video public because I don't want people thinking that nothing's going on. You guys saw it for months beforehand, but yeah, this has been torturous at best, absolutely torturous at best. It's very easy for me to get on camera and rant, and if I shared with you guys the 2 videos I filmed for you before that I did not release, I'm glad I didn't, you would see why it would be better not to open my mouth uh, and wait and leave you guys in the dark a little bit. It's just something that I've learned a lot of lessons. And it's not even like oh man, I didn't know what I was getting into. It's, oh man, I need to realize what partners and people, what to expect from certain people on a project like this. Is that coming from the Midwest area, we don't have good weather. We don't have things to look forward to. So we work. We work hard. Not to say that the people out here on the West Coast don't work. There are a lot of very hard workers, but it's a very different. People are horrible at getting back with communication. I had a company who I messaged back and forth. We called on the phone. They said, "Hey, we're busy for 2 weeks." Perfect. I waited 2 weeks and 3 days just to give them that buffer, so I wasn't just shoving anything down their throat, whether I wanted to or not, and got back and forth, and then they just ghosted me. It was weird. I agreed to their price, never negotiated anything. I never negotiate price because I want to be able to bitch if something happens. And they just straight up disappeared. And it's like, what the fuck? This was a for sure thing. They're a company that builds chassis for bond vehicles. And they said, "Hey, we're free up on August this." And I'm like, perfect. I can bring the car out after that. Okay, great. Yeah, here's our rate, $90 an hour. Awesome. And then nothing, no answers to my calls. They won't even return any calls. It goes to voicemail and says, mailbox full, like as if the person died, right? But nope, on Facebook or on Instagram, they're just posting away. And it's just like, how can you operate a business like that? Like all these small shops, you get why they're going out of business. They suck ass, and not in the way that you're paying that prostitute to do it either. It's not the fun way. It's the very unpleasant, non-safe word version of ass sucking, because it has just been ridiculous. And you guys know, I'll tell you this with some understand that you're not going to share this with the world, but it's like, this is my reputation, and I'm a very easygoing person when it comes to hearing excuses from people. I believe in a lot of people's unique hardships, but at the end of the day, you're fucking me. I look bad. Like, people have given up on the project. And it's horrible because here I am in tears. And no joke, I am at that verge of just absolute insanity because of this project going nowhere. When all of my money is in it, all of my heart is in it, I've obsessed about it. I've tasted the potential of this car, and it just sits. And I just see that not everybody has the same will or drive towards getting projects done, and that's no bueno for me. That's not going to work. So taking it into my own hands, and here we are. I can't thank you guys enough, because I'm getting dicked on this end. And then, to be honest, if you guys want some other updates, my videographer ran into some legal problems. And this was like, I got this shop in June. Or it was June 1st I was supposed to move in. And so the plan was Jarrett would come here. We would just rage hard and do kind of a TJ Hunt thing. TJ's killing it with that, where I was already on a heater. Channel was making like 100,000 views a video, and just keep that going, and then just vlogs and every day trying to put something out. And then Jarrett got into some legal problems, and we were unsure, and then he's stuck in Michigan for 6 months. Again, that absolutely murdered my situation. And I'm not going to throw Jarrett under the bus. Jarrett's my friend, and humans make mistakes, but my reputation suffered, absolutely suffered. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, I'm not getting any breaks. I have a wonderful life. Don't remotely expect, take it any other way, but it's just like, I'm trying to be a man of my word, and the world is working against me. It has nothing to do with, this project and there's haters, not that. It's literally a accumulation of shitty events and people dicking me over, like, just because they're so caught up in their own world. A lot of people just selfish, instead of saying, oh, you know what, hey, there's something more important than me. There's this project that means a lot, and my life would be better if Rob got that project done. No, just no consideration for that. I was supposed to have the 4-rotor. I was told every 6 weeks. I've been told to be next 6 weeks. I was told I would have the 4-rotor back in November of last year, and that we'd be engine dynoing it, getting that moving. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed on the 4-rotor itself. Absolutely zero. And it's very, very much a disappointment. Very, very much a bummer. And as a result, I'm focusing on the parts that I can change and make happen, because like I said, not everybody has the same priorities as me. I get it. Life just doesn't work that way. The world, it's not the Rob Dahm show, even though there are hundreds of thousands of people who do actually subscribe to the Rob Dahm show. It isn't the Rob Dahm show. The real world is. I would say if I was going to give you guys any sort of advice, look at my successes. The 3-rotor is actually a massive success. Most people don't understand that at all. But that car, by all the weirdness, all the fun, goofiness, the just let's just go do it sort of attitude of that car has been phenomenal for this channel, phenomenal for my life, phenomenal for entertainment, and grown a very entertaining, I'd say, enterprise of a small scale. This whole, hey, let's do everything right the first time and have a whole team of dildos that don't actually get work done, it's not my strength, and I was told that this is how it would work, and where are those dildos now? Not where I want them. And so it's something where you have to be careful when you're told to do things differently than you've done them before. You have to be very careful that might not be the right thing, especially in an entertainment standpoint. You look at somebody like that dude in blue. David keeps trying different things, or gets kind of suckered into trying other things as well from other YouTubers, and it doesn't work for him. And he's definitely struggling. Whereas in my case, thankfully, with the YouTube stuff, I'm not struggling. The fact is I just need to make more videos, and then the YouTube algorithm gives me the lease back on life. Because right now it certainly caps that at like 40,000, 50,000 views. The average video, just guaranteed, 50,000 views. But that's only because I haven't made videos in like 2 months. And then as soon as I start making videos, you can see the cumulative effect, and life goes good again. So thankfully, very fortunately, my core goal of the YouTube channel is still very much alive and beating. Heart's beating hard.